My own? Oh, there you go. I got 6 o'clock, so please silence your cell phones, please. We got everybody here? I think we do. So at 6 o'clock, I call this meeting of Saginaw City Council order. Please rise for the pledges. Please be seated. All right, so this is a special called meeting of the Saginaw City Council. Just one item on the list. Audience participation is like normal. You can speak about any item that is on the agenda. Fill out a form just like this with Janice, and you're allowed to speak once we get to that point. All right, item number 3 is presentation and conceptual plan by the Victory Group for the approximately 80 acres tract located south of Saginaw High School and west of Blue Mound Road. Who's going to be presenting that, Gabe? Please introduce yourself.
My name is Tony Ramji, and I'm the developer for this project, the 80-acre project in Saginaw, which we've named Victory Shops at Saginaw. I'm accompanied today by my attorney named Prabha Sinclair, who specializes in working with cities and projects like this. We have a consultant who's also in attendance, who's late but going to be in attendance. Sorry about that. And he's a consultant who works with us on calculations so that any numbers or ideas that we present to the city have some data behind them. And then I have a colleague here, Bobby Mendoza, who's going to present our project to the council. Thank you for having us today.
Hello, council. How y'all doing today? Bobby Mendoza. I'm representative with the developer Victory Real Estate Group. As you all know, we've been working, purchased the site, a little over a year ago. I've been working on our plan development for this 83-acre mixed-use development. The development consists of mainly commercial and residential. It's about a little over 250,000 square feet of commercial, which consists of retail, restaurants, some early education facilities, and then we also have some residential components that are mixed between, family, multifamily, and some small townhouse type units. In addition to the project, it'll consist of, some infrastructure, which will include the extension of New McElroy from Western Center that'll connect to the old McElroy, realignment of Watauga Smithfield that you see down below on the kind of that what we call phase 2 retail around the second detention pond, in addition to bringing utilities through the site to service the entire development. In addition, we'll be providing, retention ponds that have some water features, some plazas, boardwalks, splash pads, park amenities, things of that nature that we'll walk through as we get through a little bit further into the project. Okay, this is a little bit of a vision, just from the corner near Saginaw High School, looking at Rough Rider and Blue Mound Road of what it would look like. This is going to change just slightly as the multifamily is also bringing a townhouse component in the exterior back there in the back. But it shows really what the retail will look like along the frontage road. It'll be very similar to what you guys see across the street at the Victory at Basswood site on in front of the high school, where Starbucks, Chipotle, and those concepts are located on that 40-acre development that we did. Here's some concept plans of the retail buildings that we're doing in what we call phase 1 retail. That's retail A, similar building for retail B. It'll be a mix of retail restaurants. And then the retail C building, which is on the hard corner, and we're looking at making that a little bit bigger as we have a need for additional restaurants that are at that corner near the high school. Okay, I'm going to go into what we call the phase 2 or the boardwalk. This is really where we've put a tremendous amount of focus on bringing the restaurant components to the city. As you could see, and as I get through the presentation, this is going to be a retention pond with a boardwalk that's going to surround the retention pond. It'll have some park amenities, possibly some amphitheaters, playground areas, really a gathering place for the community. And we've noticed in our developments throughout DFW that outdoor patios and things of that nature are really a good driver in helping bring people to not only go to the restaurants but also stay and enjoy their time, in a family atmosphere. So here's some examples of what we're kind of aiming towards the design with the exterior patios, the boardwalks that are overlooking the retention ponds. Kind of just going to run through some photos. These are really inspiration photos of what we're looking at achieving with this area. Here's some examples of some splash pads that really we want to incorporate into that area as well to help, with that family-friendly environment we're trying to bring to the Phase 2 retail. Also, here's some examples of really what the retention ponds will look like. We'll have some fountains within those retention ponds, as well as lit crosswalks that'll bring the residential and be able to incorporate some walkability between the projects from the residential to the commercial. Also talking here about, we got a dog park that we're going to be incorporating into the project, as well as, a park amenity on the, I think it's a 7-acre site. There's about 1.5 acres that we're putting a park amenity back there as an additional gathering place that we're kind of some inspiration photos there as well. And then this is, as you know, we also own the Bell site, which is where we're doing the early education facility. We'll be working on some updating the water tower and kind of beautifying that and coming up with some concepts for that as well. Just going into a little bit of really the project cost that you see here is regarding the infrastructure. So we're looking at about $12 to $15 million of infrastructure between the roadways, utilities, and all the design work and all the costs that'll be going into putting this 80-acre development together. I'm going to pass it off to Prabha, who will be going through a little bit more of the presentation.
Okay, well, before I introduce myself, I'll introduce myself. Prabha Sinclair with Sinclair Law, and I'm the Public Improvement District Attorney and Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Attorney. And I was originally working with the City of Dallas and as an assistant city attorney doing this kind of stuff. And now I've been on the private side for the past 10 years doing this. Any questions so far about the concept, about that lighted crosswalk, where exactly it's going to be? Do you have any questions about some of the elements that Bobby has talked about? And let's dive right into the concept plan. If y'all have questions, love to be able to answer them.
Cindy, sure.
Hi. You talked about a splash pad.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my experience with those has not been very positive, just because of maintenance and vandalism and things with these particular items. They're also seasonal. They're just good probably from June through August, maybe September here in this part of the state. Is there something different that you could put there that could be used year-round that would be for the, good for the kids?
We're definitely open to different options to bring it in. The idea is really to keep the families and
right.
Drive the people to the restaurants and create an atmosphere for the community. Mm-hmm. And we're open to different amenities.
Yeah, I would really like to see something that would be available to the families year round rather than just 3 or 4 months a year.
Understood. Yes, ma'am. We'll definitely work with our team on that for sure.
I don't have any ideas right off the top of my head, but I would appreciate that
What
consideration.
about a playground?
We will.
Well, they
We
said
will incorporate a playground, and I just didn't have any examples to put up really because
I thought they had
there's
talked
so
about
many
playgrounds.
variations of playgrounds and things of that nature.
Where would the playground be? You want to point out where that would be?
Yeah, so let me get back. And it's back here. So really what we're looking at is, you can't really see it, but it's going to vary back to where you see the steps of where the amphitheater is, and in that area, we're still kind of moving around some of the buildings to figure out the right area and the size. We want the boxes you see behind one of the retail buildings, I think it's called Retail E1, that kind of shows some size of what a playground would look like. And as you see, we got to figure out the orientation and where that's going to go, and what type to use and to have, and things of that nature. So
you were talking earlier about sidewalks. Are you going to have any, shall we say, sidewalk or walking paths for the people living there and eating there? And
Yes, sir, we are. So I'm going to go to the concept plan, but I'm going to point out on this slide here. So if you look at the top middle crosswalk there, so that we're going to light up our crosswalks that are going to come across New McElroy And the area that we'll be looking at for those connectivity points, it'll be a couple different points, but you could see where we have that dark gray line there that connects that detention pond. Around that detention pond, we'll have a walking trail, running trail that'll go around that detention pond as well as an amenity. And then it'll have connectivity that'll come down and could bring people to that restaurant kind of gathering area. Let me come back to the larger plan.
Concept plan.
So, and then you could see also, from both phases, the one I pointed out on the previous slide has the connection in between the two detention ponds. And then if you come, let's call it southwest down New McElroy, you'll see the connection to the second phase there of residential that will have some connection points as well to bring the people and that are already in the development, bring them down into the gathering area that we're doing. And then around the retention pond, we'll have what we're calling a boardwalk. That'll be a kind of a walking area, a little bit larger, so more of a gathering area as well.
Go ahead.
This is way ahead of time, I know, but if you could keep in mind the possibility of maybe having a family entertainment venue. Are you talking about that later?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm going to zoom back into this area. So if you see where we have those kind of circled steps on the, let's call it the southwest corner of the detention pond,
I wonder if can we point up here and point to this? Would that be all right?
You could point to the big one back there. Everybody can see.
Oh, with that there. Does that show?
the light doesn't hit.
Oh.
But it's really on that southwest corner of that detention pond down there. Let's say to the left of E2 building, you see those circular steps. That's intended to be kind of like a small amphitheater where you could do some live music and bring kind of some outdoor activities to that area. And that whole area is kind of changing a little bit as we're trying to incorporate the right size of green area and activate the space.
Other questions, council?
I have one. Why is the trend, and you may not be the people to answer this, why is the trend to build all multifamily housing? Why don't people buy houses anymore? Why don't we build houses for people to purchase that are far more affordable than
I don't know that, other than interest rates being extremely high right now. I don't know.
Yeah, this has been going on a long time while interest rates were even low.
I can't answer that question. I'm not. We're kind of the mixed use overall developer from a retail commercial standpoint. I can't answer that specifically.
What percentage rental versus purchased houses do you have in this development?
I don't have that answer as well. I'm not the multifamily developer on this project.
Okay.
We're working with a separate group that's doing that development. We can find out that information.
Turn on your light.
The multifamily, is it going to be plain Jane? I mean, are you going to have balconies or something like that in there? I don't like the
I don't
cracker
have their
box style.
recent elevations on me. I know that they've just submitted, for some approvals to the city. I don't want to answer that question incorrectly. I don't know that right now.
I got you.
Unfortunately.
Well, as big as they are, they're going to stand out, so they ought to at least
Have some balconies.
look good, instead of a cracker box. So.
Yeah, I'll pass that along. I believe they're trying to kind of stay within the concept of what our front retail is looking like, so kind of a modern, nice look. But I'll pass that along to them and let them know.
Go back to the larger view, please. So on the, if I can go directly south, we're going south. That will be southeast. I see the strip in front along, 156 along Blue Mountain Road. That's community commercial. What's behind that? Is that your medical office buildings, or what are those? What, the black?
Yeah, that's really, so the only thing really set in stone down there, we call that the Bell Helicopter site within the development, is the early education facility that you see on the far west side of that lot. So that's going to be a STEM-based learning facility. Everything else is really just kind of lines on paper and concept plans. It's ever evolving. We do see that there's probably going to be an office component down there, like a medical office, a professional office, condo type situation. We just don't really have the final layouts of how that's all going to lay out. And that whole kind of, other than the early education on the far west, it's going to evolve as as more tenants and uses start to kind of come together, and when we start the construction and get the infrastructure underway.
And are you looking at like 2 restaurants or what? Don't know yet.
Around the pond, I mean, ideally, would have 2, 4, somewhere, 6, maybe more. Ideally, we're really trying to activate that area. A couple of our plans show, 2 patios on each one of the larger buildings. We got 2 standalone restaurants in the back, and then, we're working with a family-friendly restaurant that would kind of go on the opposite side of that. So, anywhere between 4 or 5. We're not exactly sure yet, but they're large buildings back there that we definitely are going to have a mix of restaurant-heavy type uses.
And what would be across the very bottom of the picture, across the street?
That's what I'm looking at. I can't read it.
On the Bell site?
Yeah, on the Bell side.
Those are we don't have any specific uses in mind there. It's Zone CC, so we're gonna just kind of follow that zoning path. This is a concept plan, and it's again, if I showed you one tomorrow, it'll change, especially around that detention pond and things of that nature. So we don't have any specific uses identified on the southern piece.
Quick calculation. I see that your commercial is just shy of 6 acres that you have dedicated, doing the math. How much acreage is allocated for your multifamily?
I think the multifamily is about 40 acres. The far left light industrial piece is about 7 acres. The Bell site alone is about 5.5 or 6 acres, so that's all retail just by itself. I can't remember the phase 2 site exactly, just what that looks like, or the retail phase that quick, because we also have the detention ponds, the roads, and all the other things that are going to be as an amenity. So it'll kind of net out of the overall 88 acres.
What is your plan for the light industrial?
We don't really have a plan over there right now. We're kind of just looking at that as our piece of the development that's going to come with time. We don't have anything specific that we've identified.
Is it part of the light industrial piece, and I'm thinking out loud, isn't that floodplain? That piece does not have any.
It's about 1.5 acres. You see that line back there. That is currently in the floodplain.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's the piece that we'd like to amenitize.
Might look good as a park, right?
Mm-hmm.
And walking trails, yeah.
Yes.
And you brought up walking trails. I'm thinking about how this could connect into the rest of our park system via walking trails somehow. That sort of was one of my questions. I'm visualizing what is to the west of here and how we could connect some things, but that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, we'll keep that. I believe the walking trail comes around and somewhere along Lavon Lane. We have gotten that comment from staff, so
yeah.
we're looking into
Please,
that.
absolutely.
Have you given any consideration? You talk about a modern theme, but maybe rather than modern, maybe more Saginaw type thing, like grain elevators and trains and things of that nature?
I think that water towers.
That was
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's hard to really identify, cities with themes. So we don't want to do that and say, hey, this is a design that's specific to a city. But we can, talk about different things and take them into consideration as we're developing certain elements within the city. Keep in mind the grain towers and the things that make Saginaw Saginaw. Yes, ma'am.
How much parkland is incorporated into this project? Do we have a number?
I don't have a total number yet because, again, some of it is around that pond and the amenities and the things that we're bringing there. I don't have a total number yet there.
Okay.
I don't have that today.
We've had a lot of residents ask for a fishing pond. Will this thing be stocked with fish for the residents to use?
I don't think the intent was to stock it.
Okay.
But I don't know if it could be done.
You want to catch fish, then go cook it up at one of those restaurants, Paul? You're a chef. You could do that, right?
Well, it says sometimes it rains fish, so, you know, they might get some in there.
The TERS slide.
Any other questions?
Any questions, council?
We have a couple more slides.
Yeah, please
to go
keep
through.
going. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Patrick's here.
Yeah, why don't we bring up our financial consultant,
Yeah, so-
Sundance.
Patrick Bournes with Sundance. He's our financial consultant that helps us with the PID and the TERS and things of that nature, and he'll be able to walk you through a few of the slides.
Right there, yeah, projects and costs.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm sorry that I'm late. When you come from out of town, the traffic kind of messes with you sometimes. Despite best efforts, right? So I appreciate your patience with me, and I'm glad that they were able to put on a good show in the meantime, right? So as they mentioned,
will you please introduce yourself? You may.
I was just about
okay.
to get there.
Thank you.
He's like, enough with the niceties, just give me your name. So I will do that. My name is Patrick Bourne. I work with Sundance Analytics. What our firm does is we specialize in structuring financing districts. One of the biggest hurdles in every type of development is the upfront costs that are required before you can bring in that vertical development, before you can generate the tax revenues, the sales tax revenues. And so I work with developers in structuring financing districts, looking for ways to pay for those initial infrastructure cost outlays. One of the uses that is pretty prevalent throughout the state of Texas is a financing district called a public improvement district. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. I won't go into all the minutia unless you'd like me to. But what I want to start off with is you can see a table up here with the project costs. So they've walked through what their project is looking to bring as far as the vertical development that they're looking to generate from this, what they're looking to bring to the city. What we also wanted to talk about were some of the project costs that are required for that. As you can see, one of the biggest costs in this is just the roadways in and of themselves, almost $4 million, $3.4 million in roadway costs that are necessary to bring that infrastructure, as well as water, sewer, drainage. We talked about a significant amount of the ponds, about $2.2 million, and that's before fish go into them, right? And so in total, we're looking at infrastructure that needs to get put in before we can go vertical of over $12 million, almost $12.3 million. It's a significant investment in order to kickstart the development. So as we're looking at ways to fund this, one of the items that I talked about was a public improvement district, or what is often referred to as a PID. And the reason that developers like to utilize public improvement districts is because they provide the opportunity to generate construction financing. They can be used as part of that capital stack when looking to do these initial costs. Many reimbursement mechanisms or many financing mechanisms out there are reimbursement type districts. And you may be aware that for this project, a PID had been created previously to try and trigger this. So we're trying to trigger and kick off this development. So we're trying to work through that and get it to work efficiently with this project. If I click this right arrow, does that go to the next?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, there we go. The other mechanism that we'd like to utilize with this is, if you look there in yellow, this property is located within an existing tax increment reinvestment zone. One of the other things that we have been utilizing, and with this one, the property is already included. You can see the yellow shading there where we're located. There's the term of the TERS, as well as what I've put there on the side are those items that are currently tagged or itemized in the TERS project and financing plan to be funded with the TERS revenues. And so you'll notice that a lot of those are very similar to those costs that we're looking to fund as part of our initial infrastructure costs. So you see street, water, sewer, sidewalks, detention ponds, all of those items that are our big hurdles in getting the project done are identified as items to be funded with the TERS. One of the things that we have been doing throughout the state of Texas is utilizing a combination of the PID and the TERS. In a PID, the developer elects to put a lien on his property to utilize that construction financing capability, and we can then use the TERS revenues to pay. To pay a portion of those PID installments. This helps us to utilize that TERS financing tool as part of an upfront construction financing tool in tandem with the PID that is placed on the property. So what we'd like to be able to do here is utilize the TERS that's already in place in tandem with the PID and modify some of those terms to better fit this project. When I say modify those terms, one of the items that we'd want to do is just expand. You saw that the project includes the Bell tract right below. The TERS currently stops just north of that. In order to bring that infrastructure, we want to just amend those boundaries to include that piece there. Okay. As we talk with the city, do you want to go through this schedule, Prabha, or would you like me to go through this one? We can tag team this. Sounds great. So what this table is, we'd mentioned utilizing the PID, the TERS. There are other infrastructure in addition to just the horizontal infrastructure that this project's looking to utilize. Part of it is the remediation of the Bell helicopter track. We're trying to attract some strong retail tenants to this project as well. As we talk with city staff, that's been noted that that's one of those things that the city's trying to bring in are some strong retail components that'll generate some sales tax revenue. So that's another thing that we're looking to do here, as well as to work with the water tower on the site. We talked about those PID eligible costs, road, water, sewer, storm drainage, the detention ponds, and then the parks and trails. So what I've done here is put together a matrix of how we're looking to utilize a combination of the developer funding and work in partnership with the city to fund some of this infrastructure, as well as just some of the enhancement to the project and the location as a whole. So I'll go kind of through this matrix. What we'd be doing is a combination of, we mentioned the TERS, the PID, development agreement, a 380 agreement with the city, and some of the sources to go towards those. For example, we'd want to work with the city in utilizing, if there are any existing city funds, to help with the remediation of the Bell helicopter site to get that fixed up so that we could start development on that right away. Also use that as a way to attract, maybe through some TI improvements, reduced rent, some way to attract some key retail tenants in this area. We'd be looking to work with the city on utilizing the beautification fund in order to enhance that water tower and remediate the water tower that's currently on the site that is a little bit of a blight to the area right now. We'd be wanting to use the PID and the TERS in tandem to fund those PID eligible costs. As I mentioned, what we'd be doing here is placing that lien on the property through the PID and using those TERS revenues to offset a portion of those annual PID installments that would be paid by the property owners. With I want to be clear there when I say the TERS currently has 3 participants in it. There's the city, there's the college, or the college district, and then there's the county as well. When looking at the TERS, we would only be utilizing the county and the college district proportion of those TERS revenues to go towards the PID. We'd be working with the city, utilizing the city portion of those TERS revenues. We'd hope to use that to fund the detention ponds, the drainage, some of those key infrastructure items that the city has really been wanting to have showcased as part of this project, as well as the parks and trails. Step in, please.
Okay, so can you go back to your boundary, your TERS?
I will.
So,
Make sure you speak in the microphone so
Sure.
anybody listening can hear you.
What's shown in the yellow is our property, and the red, I guess it's kind of green now with the yellow overlay on it. That would be basically the existing TERS as well as the existing PID that you all have created on that site. And now what we what we would be requesting to do is to expand the PID boundaries, so the existing PID to include that Bell helicopter site, as well as this TERS to include that Bell helicopter site. One of the things I want to mention as Patrick was going through it is the TERS that we're requesting is not from the city-wide TERS. Actually, we would be requesting from just the increment that is created on this particular site, including the Bell helicopter site. For those funds, that increment to be used to offset that PID assessment. So I just kind of wanted to make a clarification.
No, I appreciate you pointing that out.
Can I ask a quick question to our attorney? How easy, remind me how we can revise, or what do you do to modify the PID and the TERS boundary? How does that work?
We would just go through the same process that we've done previously. It's fairly straightforward. The question really, it's discretionary whether we want to do that. So I think the presentation tonight is just a portion of a request in order to go through that process.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think we've hit on that. We've kind of hit on the sources and uses. Did you want to touch on that anymore?
I think we're good. You
Perfect.
did a great job.
And so the next slide we wanted to talk here was just kind of a timeline. We walked through kind of the development, how we're looking to fund that infrastructure, some of the modifications that we'd like to make to those existing districts that are already on the project, and then a proposed timeline of the steps that would need to happen in order to make these changes and get this project started. So I'll turn it over to Prabha to walk through the schedule with you.
Thank you, Patrick. Really, that's kind of, I'd rather talk high level than everything that's in that schedule. So one of the questions, Mayor, you had asked is how easy it is to now expand this TERS and to potentially deal with the existing PID. From my experience, it's been better with eventually when we're requesting PID bonds to be issued, the Attorney General gets to look at all of this and then they stamp their approval on it. So it's been easier when there's an existing PID, and it's been quite some time now since that's been created, is to dissolve that PID. And since we're adding property to it, we're now the owners versus who filed that petition previously. So we come to you, and like your attorney has said, it's in your discretion whether or not you want to do that with this particular property. But that would be the request, is that we're dissolving the old PID and then we're creating a new PID, but adding that Bell helicopter site. For the TERS, we'd call a hearing as well in order to amend your existing TERS boundaries, and with your current TERS project and finance plan to add that Bell helicopter site. So with your authorization for staff to be able to negotiate with us, we'd come back to you sometime in May with a development agreement. And long before that, I'm sure your city attorney is going to come to you with executive sessions on here's some terms. We'll go back and forth with some drafts of that DA so that you guys, development agreements, so you guys can take a look at it previously to that. So there will be a lot of questions and answers back and forth with you all in executive session with your attorney on the terms of that development agreement prior to that approval.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure,
I'm just going to offer, so it's posted for closed session for tonight as well. At the conclusion of this presentation, we can start having some initial conversations, but just to start off with some of the amenities that you all would like to see. Obviously, they can only promise what they know they can deliver, but that's an opportunity to negotiate some of the things that you want to see delivered to the site.
Here's another question I have, and I don't know if it's for you or for you. This would involve the county and the college, and how difficult would it be to get that changed?
They typically fall. I'm sorry, Gabe.
No.
Yeah, so my understanding, and I'd have to check with the county, is that the commissioner has to approve. I don't know as far as amendments are related to TERS boundaries, but I would guess we would schedule a meeting with the commissioner and explain the project, especially the piece that we want to redevelop. It's got concrete that needs to be abated, removed. So long as the commissioner is in support, then they'll move it forward. And then
would it go through the whole commissioner's court or just our commissioner?
Yeah, it requires approval of the commissioner's court. So, we could probably guarantee a timeline on our end, but certainly not with the county or the college.
And what about the college? How does that?
They follow the county. So long as the county approves, then I think their policy is they match TERS participation same way.
My concern, it's just a issue potentially, is I don't know how long that would take. And we have new county commissioners, new judge, a lot of new folks involved that were not when we first started this. So that's just an FYI.
Thank you. We definitely will take that into consideration and work with staff and the city attorney to see what we can do with the county and maybe get started a little bit on meeting with them sooner than later. Really, that's honestly the end of the presentation. Have any questions about the numbers or the financing mechanisms that Patrick had mentioned between the public improvement district or the tax increment reinvestment zone, or a little bit of the timeline? I'm happy to answer any questions on any of those.
My question would be, would you go back to the funding table? The funding table,
Sure.
however you want to call that table. Yeah. That one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have any idea on those dollars? Because you're going to ask us for mediation, but I have no idea what you're asking for.
Yeah.
I can guess, but I don't know how much.
No, and that's a great question, and that's what we're working through all of that, because a lot of that comes down to how we structure the financing, right? So that's why the first thing that we put up there was kind of what we were showing as project infrastructure costs of the $12.3 million or so. In that, the remediation is included in that, correct, Bobby? Okay, remediation is included in that. Some of the other costs, as we...
It's not included.
Oh, I thought you said it was. Remediation is not. Okay. And so some of those come down to the remediation, the timing, the cost of it is going to come to what are the sources that we can utilize for that, right? So that we can work together. So I think that's one of those items that we'll be working through in the development agreement that Prava had mentioned. What we're trying to do here is give kind of a big picture. This is the structure we'd like to pursue, and then sort through the details of it all in that development agreement. Same thing with bringing in retail tenants, right? We can work through in the development agreement what the goals are there, but the numbers, the costs are going to have to be sorted out. And as we start to bring the engineers on site to get a better OPC or opinion of probable cost, start getting budgets and contracts.
And yeah, that's a good point, because if you're asking for our participation, we would definitely have goals.
Correct, and that's why, quite frankly, we intentionally did not put dollars up there, because we didn't want to start on either side have anybody committing to amounts yet until we knew. More so, let's put together the framework and then fill in the details as we continue.
Council, other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Mm-hmm.
So, is that all your presentation? That's everything we have right now?
That's all we got.
Unless council has any other questions or staff have any questions for folks. I do have some folks that would like to speak, so thank
Okay,
you guys.
perfect.
Please don't run off.
I was going to say we'll be around all evening, so
Yeah, please.
as you meet, if there are questions that you do end up having, feel free to let us know.
You will probably have some questions right now. I have three people that would like to speak. Tegan Partridge.
Evening, Tegan Partridge. I live at 801 Mockingbird, right over by the Saginaw High School. Mm-hmm. So I think we've all heard here the restaurant development and the commercial space all sounds really great. I mean, I think Saginaw has heard that they need restaurants. People want that. I will say that introducing multifamily housing carries the potential for all sorts of problems without some thoughtful planning. You heard here today from this group, and I truly, after hearing their presentation, wonder how much this has been thought through. And so you heard the comment of outdoor music right next to a residential neighborhood, really? What percentage of rental versus owned units? No able to answer. Incomplete plans, no plans for their Southern Bellsay. I heard a lot of him-hawing back and forth on various issues in this. They have lots of promises, lots of the things that they say they're going to do, no plans to get there. At least I didn't get it from the presentation, unfortunately. Plans for a new grocery, anything over there? 980 new families being added right there. There's one grocery store on that side of town. it's going to get slammed. It's already packed. It's already busy. I wonder if the city's done the research into the school district accommodating this amount of growth. The roads, I know they're under construction, but can they handle increased traffic that this is going to bring to that area? We even heard from their consultant traffic was bad getting here. How's that going to work? 40 plus acres of this is multifamily housing. That's a lot of houses. That's a lot of people. That's 980 units. I mean, how many people are we going to be packing into our school district? And I wasn't clear, the development's on both sides of Levant. I wasn't sure. I heard there's green space plan for call it the west side of Levant.
Just be east of Levant. Right?
East of Levant, okay.
I don't believe there's anything west of Levant, is there?
I didn't also see, or at least from the presentation, wasn't given a good timeline for the overall project. I hear them asking for funding and things like that, and there's a timeline for that. But for the overall development of the plan, it wasn't clear if this is all getting funded by the developer. I heard talk of city funds being used as well, so I have concerns there as well. Also have concerns that they come without their separate group that's doing all the multifamily development that we can't hear from or ask them questions. So I think we've all heard today that there's not really a strong enough plan to move forward with it, and I would just urge my city representation to vote no until we have a thoroughly thoughtful, developed plan, and that they publish it and come back to us with a better thought-out plan for this. And that's all. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. I also have Benjamin Gentry, I believe. I can't read your name. I'm sorry, sir.
Benjamin Guttery.
Guttery, okay.
So I'm here to speak for the plan. I think, my husband and I have lived here since 2010. We own 2 properties here in town. We're homeowners. We're very, very excited about a new tax-producing development here in Saginaw, not another school or church or house neighborhood on a place that could be producing, sales tax. I'm especially excited about the mix of uses. We have a pretty big industrial base here in the town that isn't talked about often, and there might be a local business that might want to expand into one of those light industrial uses. I would like to ask the developers to look at landscaping and the trees. Don't use kind of cheaper trees that developers tend to use, or trees like elm that cause more allergies. We have a lot of pine trees up and down Saginaw, Maine. I think that might be good to kind of tie in some of those. I heard the word splash pad spoken a couple times, which Gabe knows I am very anti-splash pad. I think they're super hard to maintain, and I don't think that they last for longer than a few years. I did like hearing things about the water tower and some of the Bell helicopter site used for city branding. There's also an air traffic control tower on the site that I think something could be done with maybe local artists, have sculptures, stained glass to light that up, use it for signage in the development. And I would like to speak. I know that there's not a lot of people here speaking. I think you said there's 3. Whenever this meeting was announced on Facebook, there was a lot of hubbub on Facebook about it. People talking about wasn't there a school supposed to be built there, and just a lot of hubbub about it. Why is there more apartments and stuff like that? Everyone always asks for more retail, but we need more bodies to have more retail and more sit-down restaurants. Saginaw's a big place, but it's also not a big place when you compare it to North Richland Hills, which has 80,000 people. We're a small city. We need density. So as long as it's done the right way and it's not low-income housing, I would like to see balconies on the apartments too. I know those new apartments on Blue Mound Pros, they look like self-storage units. They're so bland. So I would like to see, the multifamily done in a right way. And generally, I'm for development in the city. I would also like to ask the city council to give, the departments that handle this some funding to do like a Shop Saginaw marketing plan. A lot of residents don't realize the city boundaries. It's insane to me. I've been on my neighborhood's HOA for 7 years. they talk about the Kroger and they talk about this and that. And I'm like, that's Fort Worth. Like, so many people don't realize our city boundaries. So maybe there's some sort of education
Can I say
plan.
amen? Amen. You're preaching to the choir. I'm with you.
Yep. Maybe there's some sort of education plan that can be done, some sort of Shop Saginaw plan that can be done to kind of keep money in our city. I'm happy to see this development come, and I know that not everything can be set in stone. The development that they built across the street was supposed to have a Lidl grocery store. Well, then guess what? Lidl decided not to build in the whole United States. Sometimes plans change. Now they're having a fitness center there, I think. So there's a lot of information online that people can find out about what's being built in their city. And I do want to say, kind of echoing my fellow residents' concern, I'm a little surprised at some of the comments and questions that some of the city council members brought tonight. I've never been to a city council meeting before. I've just lived here before, and I knew more about the multifamily and knew more of some kind of like the possibilities of what can be done here in the city with developers. So I just would, I know that the city council isn't a full-time job, but I just would encourage y'all to maybe I just was surprised at some of the questions that came out tonight. So thank you. Yeah, this is got it. So like I said, I've talked with Keith a lot about this development, and I'm, because just looking online and kind of finding renderings and leasing plans and stuff like that. So yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Guthrie. Please come back and see us. One more. Brax St. Clair.
Brax St. Clair, 421 Creek Terrace Drive. I just want to, basically, most of everything I had to say was already mentioned before, but I would encourage y'all, as you look into this, to explore the possibility of converting that light industrial to either neighborhood commercial or community commercial. That would mean more sales tax revenue for the city. I think we have enough industrial as it is. And to capitalize on that, I think you're being given an opportunity with a developer who wants to bring in a lot of retail that might expand the appeal. Also, if apartments, multifamilies going in, a lot of them are not going to want to move across the street from a warehouse. And if something can be done in a commercial way to kind of entice them to come in and be able to walk to even more shopping opportunities, I think that would be a good thing. So my encouragement would just be to look into the light industrial, if it's amenable to the developer and amenable to council, of converting that to some sort of commercial development.
Thanks, sir. I would ask you guys, you've heard these questions, would you like any response? You want to respond to any of these questions or add some details or anything you would want to say?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I welcome all the comments, and I'm grateful for the input from the residents. What I would say to you is that, we carefully think through our plans for projects like this. And depending ultimately on what budgets look like, for example, since we bought this property, the interest rates have gone up double from where they were, and it prohibits sometimes developers from completing projects the way they vision them being done. Right across the street from this project, the city of Fort Worth has enjoyed a development we did with 40 acres with all the premium brands that really could have been on this side of the road, because that interest is on the Saginaw side. And we believe that we can attract all of these users, but the idea is not to get up here and tell stories. Today, what we presented is what's in place with users that are committing to the design that we've proposed. In terms of the amenities, we really believe that in the town of Saginaw, there aren't a lot of good options. So, for example, when we're designing an amphitheater for the patio area of the restaurants, the idea is that there might even be events from the high school where they come and do those events where all the restaurants are. And ultimately, all the patios are kind of connecting, and then you walk on a boardwalk where you're passing all of those restaurant patios. This becomes an attraction for the city of Saginaw, and we'll find people getting drawn from outside of Saginaw to a project like this. The issue for us is that in order to bring these kinds of unique restaurants, you have to essentially buy the restaurant and bring them to Saginaw and prove to them that the project can work. Then others will follow. So in the budgets that we have here, it's not it's for the sake of the developer, it's for the sake of the project in the town in which we're trying to plan something. So it does take time, and it is a partnership with the city to bring what we're trying to do. From an amenity point of view, to recognize, like the gentleman brought up a point that people don't know the boundaries of their own city. So when we re-strategize the water tower, for example, the city of Saginaw's name will be on that water tower, and to me, it brings pride to the project. So when we work with the city and ultimately the council comes to a decision, our hope is that it'll be in line with what we're proposing so that we can bring all these amenities and retail to the project. When we build retail, we spend $20, $30, $40 million building buildings with the hope that people are going to come. And we're willing to take that risk because we believe in what's here in the city of Saginaw. And we've been received well by the city manager, the city attorney, and other people that we've met. So we're very encouraged to proceed forward with this project sooner than later. I hope that I'm answering questions, but I just want to be truthful about where we are on this project. So thank you again for hearing us out.
Quick question for you.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned possibly changing that light industrial to something commercial. Would that be something you guys could look at entertaining?
Respectfully, when we're working with the retail users at the moment, they all want to be right on the hard corner across from the high school. And if you see the retail across the street, it's reasonable to expect the retailers to ask for that. I think it would be the last thing that you would be able to convince a retailer to do would be to sign up in the back of the property, because we have to prove everything up, which will take several years to get there. So it could be a consideration in the future, but today it would be very difficult for us to make a commitment until we can see how many users we can truly attract to the project.
Council, other questions?
Would it be possible to make that stretch along New McElroy commercial and not so much housing? So that way, at least it's not at the back, but it's connected, and that becomes a major shopping thoroughfare.
Councilmember, at the moment, the zoning and approvals on this project are the way the property sits.
Well, we're talking about changing the zoning,
yeah.
From light industrial.
So the design has been done accordingly, but what I will tell you is that all the major retailers, like across the road, we have Chipotle and Chase Bank and a variety of really nice restaurant uses. And for them to be there, they're looking for traffic counts, and I'm not sure that we can achieve those kind of traffic counts for the types of uses we're trying to bring here. The idea is to bring really high-end uses from restaurants to retailers to medical uses, like today, urgent cares and dental, and all these things are important within communities, and to bring the right brands here, we have to focus the retail on the front in order to convince them to show up. That's what we face today.
Other questions, Council? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. So that's all we have. So there's no action being taken tonight. Somebody mentioned about voting. We're not voting on this tonight. This is totally an informational session, just to understand what they've got to offer, what would be the ask from us. We do have on the agenda an executive session. I don't know if that's warranted. Do we have enough information to do a productive executive session at this point?
It really would be to answer questions at this point.
Council, what's your pleasure?
And let me just add, so it was my suggestion that we have this workshop because we've endeavored down other projects in the past and not taken it to council up front, and only to meet with some dissent. And so I want to make sure if we're going to begin negotiating, because you saw the proposed timeline. Now it's the developer's timeline, but it is rather ambitious, and the next step would be for us to start negotiating a development agreement. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to get some feedback on what you all would like to see and if you are supportive of moving forward.
Okay.
And I will say, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting,
no, that's okay.
But just remember that the zoning is entitled already. So the question really is, do we want to assist with financing some of these improvements? I think the suggestion is you'll see a better retail outcome if we do. That's the suggestion from the developer. But either way, they own the property and they're entitled to develop it in accordance with the zoning on the ground.
Okay. Then yeah, let's do a recess for a quick executive session. So at 6:54, we're in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.087. Regarding economic development negotiations. We will return to adjourn. All right, at 7:20, we're back in regular session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Charlie, Valerie, second. All those in favor? All right, everybody? At 7:20, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Keith, thank you so much.
Vaya con Dios.